Hello. In this session, we will be talking about critical thinking, how to think and write critically. Learning outcomes. By the end of this session, you will be able to understand what is meant by critical analysis, practice critically reviewing evidence, learn how to critically review literature, identify your learning technique, understand the art of learning. What is critical analysis? To analyze, to be critical. What does this mean? To analyze means to break information into elements or parts. To be critical, of course, in an academic sense, is to make careful judgment about information and to evaluate the quality of information. It is your ability to be critical, that means to evaluate information and make your own judgments about it. In academic work, being critical does not mean to criticize, but to be an evaluator of something you hear or something you read, and to have your own judgment about it. Critical analysis type of questions often are suggested by words such as discuss, analyze, justify, evaluate, or criticize. So if you see these words in your assignments, then you know that you are required to do critical analysis. When you are doing critical analysis, it's very important to distinguish opinions from facts. What is an opinion? It is an idea for which there is no evidence. So, whenever you read something, always ask what evidence does this present to support the assertions in the document? The structure of persuasion. When you are doing critical writing or critical thinking, whenever you present an argument, you have to have credible sources, of course, with references. You have to give a line of reasoning and then arrive at a conclusion. Let's look at an example. The argument here is we spend too much time on issues of concern and not on factors which we can influence. Then the student has given three reasons. Concern circles are big, influence circles are small, concern is a good place to be, and thirdly, circle of influence diminishes. And based on the reasons, the student has given a conclusion. Need to make better choices by focusing on circles of influence. Now, this is the exact way that you should attempt to critically evaluate. You should write an argument. It can be an argument that you read somewhere. Maybe some author has written something about product positioning. And then, in order for you to make a judgment about what this author has said about product positioning, you must give your reasons. 1, 2, 3. These reasons can be reasons based on other authors' works or evidence. And then, based on the reasons, you have to come to a conclusion. So, you see, in this exercise, there is no room for opinions. It's not about what you think something is, it's about what the evidence shows of what something is. Pause this presentation and do it for yourself. It will take time, so if you like, you can do it later. But think of an argument, think of reasons, hopefully backed up by literature, and come to a conclusion. So, we talk of a lot of evidence. What is this evidence? Arguments need evidence to be supported. When you find something, a fact, a document, a reading, or an article, if you want to use it as evidence to support your arguments, make sure you ask the 4 questions. Is it reliable? Is it supported by other researchers or commentators? Is the evidence sufficient? Is it enough to prove something? Is it relevant? And is it credible? That means, is it believable? And only if your information is reliable, sufficient, relevant, and credible should you use it in your assignments, especially when you're critically reviewing something. Now, why is critical thinking so hard, and what are the barriers to critical thinking? because as learners, as students, we have a natural resistance to thinking critically. For example, we will always think that I want you, the expert, to give me answers to questions. I want to know the right answer. But someone who is teaching critical thinking will say, I want you to become critical thinkers. I want you to challenge experts' answers and then come up with your own answers through active questioning. Now, this means a lot of work, obviously. So, let's talk more about critical thinking. It is the ability to analyze a problem and present a solution. The word critical here implies that your intelligence is applied to a specific issue or a problem. It means a weighing up of options is done in order for you to come to a solution. Critical thinking is incisive, logical, and deep. Incisive because it sees through complexity and obscurity. It is logical because you always develop evidence and then go to a clear position. It's deep because it involves a higher level of skills of analysis, synthesis, and judgment. Critical thinking is not disorganized, it's not just having a haphazard collection of ideas, it's not prejudiced, it doesn't ignore evidence on one side of an issue, that means it's not biased, and it's not unsubstantiated. That means it doesn't fail to take account of evidence. So, what is the difference between critical thought and criticism? When we say to criticize something, it means that we find fault. However, like I mentioned before, in the academic sphere, criticism or critical thought is not the same. To criticize something academically is to see and explain both sides, the positives and the negatives of something, and come to a conclusion. Always remember there is always an action or an outcome in both business and academia. Doing critical thinking without a conclusion is a wasteful effort. So, how do you critically analyze literature? When you are reading something, don't take one single author's definition as the ultimate truth. You have to always read one, two, three, or even five authors about the same topic in order to come to a conclusion. Have a balanced view. Seek justification of one piece of work with evidence from other pieces of work. Be very holistic and third party in your thinking and don't be emotionally attached to the content. Remember, everything is questionable and nothing is 100% correct. If you are taking a stand, however, make sure that you have theoretically underpinned evidence to justify. There has to be reason for why you are saying something. This is an example of analyzing Hofstede's cultural dimensions. Now, Hofstede was an author who wrote about culture and he wrote about 6 dimensions. Now, let's have a read to see how these findings of Hofstede are looked at by other authors, which will help you to come to a conclusion. Firstly, the 6 dimensions that currently make up Hofstede's framework are power distance, uncertainty avoidance, individualism, masculinity, long-term orientation, and indulgence. So this has been said by Hofstede. It's also been referenced by another author. This framework is used in a variety of fields, including cross-cultural management, international business, and cross-cultural psychology. This has been said by this one author called Bugleditch et al. And has recently sparked interest in economics too, said by another author. So basically, the second paragraph says that Hofstede's framework is actually helping other industries as well. But look at the third paragraph. Although highly influential, Hofstede's works have been heavily criticized. And who says this? McSweeney, Minkov, and Nakata. His framework has been questioned for overestimating the number of dimensions, misinterpreting their meaning, and using data of questionable quality, said by another author. Hofstede's data collection procedure and sample has been questioned on grounds of representativeness, said by another author, while authors such as Jadivan point to the possibility that it is US centric and specifically IBM centric. So basically, The last paragraph talks of how other authors are criticizing Hofstede. So you see, if you read all three paragraphs, you will understand that Hofstede's cultural framework too has positives, has negatives. So you can't come to a stand without reading other authors' work on what a particular author has written. So basically, what we are trying to get you to think is you can never rely on one source. You must always support whatever you are reading with other pieces of evidence which may agree or disagree to what you are reading. Remember, when you are doing critical writing, don't write anything that will seem 100% correct. Your language is very important. Avoid words such as always, never, all, every. Because when you write something that says A always results in B, that means it's the ultimate truth. And sadly, there is no ultimate truth in any business related content. Ultimate truths are things like sun rises in the east or we breathe in oxygen. Those are ultimate truths. But when it comes to management, when it comes to business, there is no ultimate truth. Anything can have exceptions. So you have to show your openness to something being different in your writing. So without using words like always, never, all, or every, use things like seems like, looks as if, suggests that, appears that, can or cannot, could, could not. Basically, what we're trying to show is caution. Remember, when you are doing critical writing, do not rush to conclusions. Read, read, and read some more. Don't generalize findings. Always remember something one author said is specific to his context and you can't use it to generalize. Don't oversimplify. Don't personalize it. Be objective. Don't be subjective. Don't think in terms of stereotypes. Don't think just because one group of people act like this, that is the stereotype for everyone else. And don't believe in propaganda. Just because you find something interesting on BuzzFeed doesn't mean that it's a good source. At the end of this presentation, take some time to do this exercise. Critically analyze. Bittersweet. Today, chocolate is lauded for its tremendous antioxidant potential. The higher the cocoa content, the more health benefits there are, and the less sugar content, which is better for overall health. So, we're talking about dark chocolate. If this is true, I can eat as much as I like, correct? Take a bit of time after this session and do this little activity to criticize this. It's not management related, but it'll help you to learn how to critically analyze information. Now that you are doing your MBA, it is very important to know how to study. Remember, there is no right or wrong in your method of studying because it's very much a very personal thing. But it's better that you know exactly how you study in order to study well. Because unless you identify your study method, it is difficult for you to adapt. Are you a morning person or are you a night owl? Knowing this is very important because you have to allocate time to do your studying when your brain is mostly to be in a very receptive mode. And before you start studying, check your mood and your energy. Is your energy high? Is your energy low? Is your mood, are you in a good mood? Are you in a bad mood? Because all of this results in whether or not you can effectively study. So, identifying yourself is very important. How to study? Remember, organize your material and be specific about what you want to study, when you want to do it, and so on. For example, make a mental note. Tomorrow I will study cultural dimensions and I will dedicate 2 hours to it and I will finish the particular area that I want to read. And of course, why not give yourself a bonus when you have done a certain amount of studying? This way you will be motivated. Don't cut short the study time in order to enjoy the bonus, of course. There are many ways in which you can study, and it's not only books and journal articles. Make sure you are always reading. Read books, magazines, articles, browse the web, Look in the BCU library, the ICT library, listen to the news, even checking YouTube clips can definitely help. The only thing you have to remember is you have to spend several hours each week on every module in order to gain real depth and understanding. Because remember, what you do in these sessions are only about 10 or 20% of the work that you actually have to put in. And how can you? There are so much of information out there. Google will give you everything you need. But of course, remember, just reading it on the screen is not the same as knowing it. And now you know that just because you read something on Google doesn't mean that it's true. You have to cross check it with what other sources have provided. It is better to avoid websites such as Wikipedia because these can be edited by the public. So when you're writing assignments, do not use Wikipedia as a source. A few tips for you to remember what you studied. Here are some tips for you to remember. Not that you have to by heart anything, but it's always good to be able to read something and remember. And don't worry, the more you read, the better you get at it. About learning, remember, there is no golden rule when it comes to learning, and we all learn in different ways. For example, think about yourself. If you get a new piece of equipment, let's say you get a new PlayStation. Now, some people just fiddle around with it and you get it to work. Some people read the instruction manual and then they start to play. Some people just don't open the box until they really have to open the box. So, you cannot say that one method is better than the other. You just have to identify what kind of a learner you are. Let's do a little exercise to find that out. How would you respond if I said, let's go swimming? Yes, quite surprising. There are typically four types of answers. Activists will say, okay, right, and you get changed and you leap into the water. Reflectors might say, yeah, is this a good idea? Theorists might say, why? Why should I swim? What's the purpose? What will I gain from this? Pragmatists shall say, have I got the time? So it's good to identify whether you're an activist, a reflector, a theorist, or a pragmatist. If you are an activist, you love to have an experience. You like to learn by doing things, you're happier with project work, and you love active learning. You're less happy reading long papers, of course, but you would love to try anything once. If you are a reflector, you always want to know what something means. You are cautious and you like to weigh up issues before acting. And when you make a decision, it is well thought through. You're probably happy to work on a project if you are given time to observe the facts and then come to a conclusion. You don't like having work dumped on you, and you do get worried by tight deadlines. You're someone who will say, I like to sit and think. If you are a theorist, you will always ask the question, what can I conclude? You like to understand what is behind certain actions and enjoy working through issues theoretically and very well structurally. Whether you apply it or not doesn't interest you so much. But you may be the one to ask the questions as to how and why something happens. You dislike unstructured sessions, and you also don't like it if you're asked to reflect on some activity or say what you felt about it. You will always ask the question, how does this fit with that? If you are a pragmatist, you like taking theories and then putting them into practice. And you like to see the benefit and the relevance of what you're doing. You are learning something you feel has no practical value, then you will quickly lose the interest. You will want to ask your teacher, why are we learning this? If you are a student, you will say, I don't like this course as it's all theory. So if you are a person like this, if you always ask, how can I apply this in practice? Then you're a pragmatist. So take some time and think about yourself. Are you a pragmatist, an activist, a theorist? or a reflector. Sometimes you will find that you are a mix of things. It's all fine, there is no right or wrong answer. But the more you identify yourself when you're doing this MBA, the more easier it will be for you to learn and learn new things and actually enjoy your experience. So, all the best.